Happy Halloween. It's been exactly 1 year since I posted my first sculpting video, which was this guy here, so I'd like to keep it a tradition and always post on Halloween. This time around, I'll have Art the Clown somehow get a hold of an alien symbiote. I think most people that get into sculpting at some point want to either sculpt Venom or Spider-Man because it's just easy anatomy practice. And with Venom The Last Dance and Terrifier 3 coming out the same month, the crossover was just too good to pass up. I started off by marking the exact proportions of his body on armature wire, which is wise to spend more time on in the beginning because it will save you a lot of wasted time later. After bulking up the torso with some foil and wrapped the arms and legs in thinner wire so the clay can have something to grip on, I built him up with some Super Sculpey. While some of this process may look questionable, I promise this is crucial for proper anatomical detail. I can usually get away with hiding half-assed work with clothes and such, but this time my folder of male anatomy that's used only for sculpting and nothing else will come in very handy. After most of his body was done, I twisted some thin wire to make some fingers and then bent it to look like something that resembles hands. I wrapped those in clay and bent the fingers in the pose I wanted them in before I started to add details. An important part of Art the Clown's whole vibe is his fingerless gloves, of course, so I added some strips of clay on his fingers, blended in the bottom, and roughed up the other side so they resemble some homemade fingerless gloves. I had this placeholder head on him just to have an idea of the size, so I made his actual head based on that one. I stuck some pre-baked eyeballs in his face, then I started to give him more of a general face shape and build up his jaw. I made a quick sketch of his head before starting just to figure out how his eyes will look like, and I went with a version that looks more like anti-Venom rather than traditional Venom. But I wanted him to have more realistic eyes so that his quote-unquote makeup looks a bit more recognizable. Yeah, based on the sketch I made, I did not plan initially to give him a nose, but his hooked sniffer is too iconic and I decided to make it as well. Under the careful watch of my cat, I also baked a ton of small teeth, on which I used some bacon bond to stick them in his mouth hole. Now, Venom wouldn't be complete without some tongue action, so I used a piece of wire to figure out a good position for it, after which I wrapped it in clay and kept it detachable so it would be easier to paint later. His eye makeup got carved in as well, and then I extended his smile a bit and added some stretchy bits that keep his jaw attached. I then stuck his head on a metal stick so that I could bake it and then attach it to his body. His tiny hat of course needs to be present, so I squished some clay into shape, then I rolled a disc to use for the brim. But before adding that on, I thought I would add some extra appendages to further enhance the idea of the symbiote, so I stuck some wires in his back to make some tentacles that he'll use to do stuff to you. And some final details that I wanted to add, starting with a split down the middle, then some flared cuffs for both his arms and legs. I also added this edge at the base of his neck just so it will separate the color difference and simulate his collar, I think. I finally stuck his head on with some bacon bond and then brushed him over with some IPA just to smooth out his muscles. Now, remember that scene in Deadpool and Wolverine where Wade meets this comic-accurate short Logan? Well, I felt the same after I stared at this almost finished sculpture. Yeah, with all the muscles added and the head, the legs looked too short. So I amputated his back leg entirely and cut out and stretched his other one, and then he finally looked more proportional. Always plan your armature size properly. Anyway, I clayed up his tentacles, also adding some vein looking things here and there for extra pleasure, for extra coolness. And once he was done, I made a simple base for him by cutting a square XPS foam and chopping it up to look like a cracked road. Because I imagine Art the Clown with the symbiote attached to him would just cause as much damage as he could on the city streets. The base then got a base of Mod Podge in black paint, with the top layer getting a darker shade of grey, then some dry brushing of light grey to make all the details stand out. And moving on to art, it's the easiest paint job I've done so far, with his color scheme being that of a checkered flag. I initially gave him a light grey base coat thinking it would help me out later with the shading on the white parts of the body, but it turned out to be useless in the end, and it was also hard to tell where I've already painted since it was very close to the shade of the clay once it dried. But in any case, half of his torso and the leg get a completely white coat, except the both of his feet, which will be black. And in keeping the theme of a chessboard, his other half is black, with his arms being opposite colors as well. His teeth got a layer of dark fleshy red first, and then on top of that I went with a darker bone color, so they look like, well, like Art the Clown's teeth. The tongue also gets a dark flesh color, and then softly brushed it with a pale pink so all the details would stand out. Finally, every part of him besides his hat gets a coat of shiny varnish. Then I stuck his tongue back in, being careful not to break any more of his teeth, because if I did that at this stage, I would have cried. I then glued Art the Venom to his base, and he was pretty much finished. Thank you for watching. I hope you had a great Halloween season, and I'll see you in the next one.